it is possible that involvement of North Korean troops will persuade the US to lift its restrictions on Ukraine using Western-provided missiles on Russian territory. It might alter that calculus, and that, of course, would be a shift in Ukraine's favour.
From The Times, this is The World in 10. I'm joined today by the correspondent Tom Parfitt, who reports on Russia. Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
Today we've seen the foreign ministers of Russia and North Korea meeting in Moscow for talks. What's come out of that meeting?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's obviously quite a tense moment. So Jae Sun-hae, North Korea's foreign minister, has been in Moscow meeting Sergei Lavrov, her Russian counterpart, and she was saying very firmly that North Korea was going to support Russia in its war on Ukraine until Victory Day, was the phrase that she used. And she also made a very stark claim that the US and South Korea were planning a nuclear strike on North Korea. So it's clearly a tense moment. And at the same time, Russia's Sergei Lavrov was praising this new alliance between the two countries and saying that it could solve significant security aims for both countries, he said.
We've seen Ukraine naming some of the North Korean generals who have travelled to Russia that we've been hearing so much about. What more do we know about the build-up of troops there?
Well, it was initially Ukraine itself, of course, which warned about this troop build-up, but since then the US has also confirmed it. And the US says it has intelligence that 10,000 North Korean troops have been deployed to Russia. Initially, we were hearing that they were mostly still in the far east of Russia, where they would have travelled to. But now, just yesterday, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, was warning that he thought the imminent deployment was coming to Ukraine because they were already, 8,000 of them were already, he said, in Russia's Kursk region, which is right near the Ukrainian border. And David Lammy, the UK Foreign Secretary, has said today that he also believed the troops were heading to Kursk. He said he thought that was a sign of Putin's desperation that these North Korean troops were getting involved, but he did also warn that that had very serious implications, as he called them, for the security of Europe and the Indo-Pacific region. So, and actually, President Putin has effectively admitted that the troops are there in some fashion. He was asked about satellite images seeming to show the North Korean soldiers in Russia last week, and he responded sort of jokingly, but he said, images, that's something serious. If there are images, they're a reflection of something. So he appeared to be confirming the presence of the North Korean troops in Russia.
So real fears from the West, from the US and Britain there. Ukraine must be a bit worried about fresh soldiers. We hear this description of it as being the meat grinder. What's been the reaction from Kyiv?
Yes, of course. I mean, Ukraine is obviously very unnerved, and it's calling for a more robust response from the West to the troop build-up. So Ukraine itself obviously first raised the alarm. It's identified the 3 North Korean generals sent to Russia, which you mentioned. And then President Zelensky made some comments to KBS, the South Korean broadcaster, yesterday. And he was saying, if there was nothing, and I think that the reaction to this is nothing, he means in the West, it's been 0, he said, then the number of North Korean troops on our border will increase. So I think Ukraine, and obviously Zelensky, is very worried that a weak response from the West will embolden Putin, and this cooperation with North Korea in the conflict in Ukraine may only increase.
We're ticking up, must be almost 1,000 days since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We don't hear a sense that things are great or going well for the Ukrainians. Could these troops, the perhaps 8,000, 10,000 North Korean troops, change how the war is going?
Well, I mean, I think it's possible that the deployment of North Korean troops could result in some kind of shift of balance on the battlefield, because it's a war of attrition. Even if these troops are only deployed inside Russia, in Kursk region, where Ukraine has made advances into Russia, then that would free up Russian troops to go and fight inside Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine. And that's where we've been seeing Russian advances on the battlefield. Russia said today that it had seized 3 more settlements in the Donbass region. It's moving towards the town of Pokrovsk, a key logistics hub. There have been an increasing number of Russian drone attacks on Ukrainian military targets, 2,000 alone in October. So the North Korean presence may bolster all of that effort. On the other hand, it is possible that involvement of North Korean troops will persuade the US to lift its restrictions on Ukraine using Western-provided missiles on Russian territory. It might alter that calculus, and that, of course, would be a shift in Ukraine's favor.
We now assess that there are some 10,000 North Korean soldiers in total in Russia. And the most recent information indicates that as many as 8,000 of those North Korean forces have been deployed to the Kursk region. We've not yet seen these troops deploy into combat against Ukrainian forces, but we would expect that to happen in the coming days. Russia has been training DPRK soldiers in artillery, UAVs, basic infantry operations, including trench clearing, indicating that they fully intend to use these forces in frontline operations. Should these troops engage in combat or combat support operations against Ukraine, they would become legitimate military targets. Now, one of the reasons that Russia is turning to these North Korean troops is that it's desperate. Putin has been throwing more and more Russians into a meat grinder of his own making in Ukraine. Now, he's turning to North Korean troops, and that is a clear sign of weakness.
Шапочка. Зараз ти був там. Ні, це метал. Контакт! Зараз я якусь хуйню дивлюся. Задача, походу, не ніхуя.
Немного. Видно, пиздец.
Oh, got it. Good it. Good. Yeah.
Сам was.
Ні, ну от Петра, то от Петра. Ну та ні, от Петра, ну хоч хуйня. А що ж це? Типа отак? Отак? Yeah, so it's those ones. I don't have any of the others.
More simple PK.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Can you give me my gloves? Well, he took my AKSU.
Та там пише, що там. Я думав, то тушонка. Це була палка.
Nice.
Ти тримається за лупу. Знаєш, як вона працює? Пішли пояс.
Пішли.
Наушників не маєш?
Yes. Так, право сюда. Подожди.
Право стріляюче, ліво тримаюче.
Есть?
Є, все.